Hi. Guess what we're going to do today? We're going to test some props. We're going to test some props that work on this 3DR Solo. Hey there, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about propellers, and these are specifically propellers that are being used on the 3DR Solo. I've got a setup over here. I'll show you in just a moment. And one of the things we're going to test primarily, we're going to try to focus on, is the difference between the Master Airscrew, this new Master Airscrew propeller that's come out, versus the stock 3DR Solo propeller. So I've actually got an RC benchmark thrust measuring system. It's a very, very good system to measure the. What we're going to do is we're going to try to establish the same amount of thrust with each propeller, and we're going to see how much current they pull, because that's going to tell us, okay, what's going on. Does that give us more flight time? Obviously more efficiency. A lot of people look at thrust. A lot of people are putting videos on YouTube showing, oh wow, it takes off really quick. Well, what they're not realizing is that they're pulling more current, which means less flight time. And you know, maybe that's okay. You know, with the racers, they're okay with propellers that pull a lot of current. These are photography machines. I kind of feel like, at least my goal is, I'd like to have the thing in the air a little bit longer. Even if it's 30 seconds, a minute longer. I mean, if you're in a situation where you're kind of far away, or you just haven't got the shot, and you just need a few more seconds, maybe, you know, maybe there's some props here that will allow us to do that. So we'll see. So now I did this test yesterday using a Turnigy system, and I just didn't like it. And you know, it works, but I don't trust the data. Here's a clip of that. Okay, so that was a Turnigy system yesterday, and even though it works, I just don't trust the data. It just doesn't seem accurate. I've been using this RC benchmark system now for about a year. I test motors and I test props with it, and I feel like it's consistent and accurate. It has a way to calibrate. I've done that. This is a very good system. It's kind of an expensive system, but I trust it. I think they're using some better components. So let's get with it and see what we can do on this. All right, the first prop we have is this is the stock 3DR Solo prop, and what I want to try to do is I want to try to get to I'm just going to go to about maybe 200 grams of thrust, which is a medium amount. And here, I'll show you what this is what the software looks like, and it allows you to do quite a bit and monitor quite a bit. I can even tear out the thrust, which means kind of set it to 0, which it's at right now. So here we are with the setup. Let's get reconfigured here. Something else you might want to try to take note of is the sound that these two systems make. They make slightly different sounds. So here we go. Let's try to get zeroed in on it there. There we go. All right, so I'm going to try to go to 200 grams, and I'm going to record the amount of current that is being pulled by this system at 200 grams. Here we go. 200 grams of thrust. A pretty consistent 1.74, 1.75 amps required to do that. Very consistent. And we are really hovering at 200 grams of thrust. 1.75 amps. Okay. 1.75 amps on this propeller, and let's switch it out. and we'll try the master airscrew propeller. All right, here we have the new master airscrew propeller, and we'll compare this obviously against the stock 3DR propeller. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go to 200 grams of thrust, and then I'm going to read what kind of current pull we have. So here we go. All right, I'm at 200 grams of thrust, right on the money. It's hovering very, very close to that. It's just a little bit over 200 grams of thrust, and I'm at steady 1.65 amps pull. Okay, so I see 1.64, 1.65. Nothing over 1.65. Okay, it's bouncing between 1.64, 1.65. Identical thrust, identical. About 203, 204 grams, which is exactly what I was doing with the original 3DR propeller, and 1.64, 1.65 amp pull. Okay, so what does that tell us? That tells us that the master airscrew propeller actually pulls a little bit less current than the 3DR propeller. So that could be calculated to see what your flight time would equal. It may not be exactly accurate because I'm using a very, very good motor. Again, I'm using a T-motor, one of their very high quality motors, that's a replacement motor for like the Phantom or you know, anything in this size range. So you know, I'm going to go back to the, just to make sure that this is correct, I'm going to go back to the 3DR propeller and see what we get on that. So let's do that real quick. Okay, here we go. I'm going to bump up the original 3DR propeller to 200 grams of thrust. Hopefully I can get it identical to where I've been before, 203 grams of thrust. So let's go ahead and give that a try. I'm going to calibrate my thrust measurement again. I'm going to what's called tare the thrust to 0. Make sure that everything is always at 0. Okay, here we go. I'm right on the money. 203 grams of thrust, same as with master airscrew. 1.72 amps of current this time. I saw a blip to 1.73. It's very steady at 1.72. It's very steady at 1.72. Doing very, very well here. Okay. So that's pretty consistent with what we had before. We had 1.75 amps of current before, but the motor has warmed up a little bit. We ran this right after the master airscrew, so 1.72 amps, very, very consistent. Okay, so that was pretty consistent at 1.72, and before, when we ran this for the first time, we got the 1.75, but I think the motor has warmed up just a tiny amount from the master airscrew. But the interesting thing is it shows that master airscrew is still a little bit more efficient with the same amount of thrust. So just say that it took 200 grams of thrust to keep your machine hovering or just gently flying around while you're doing a shot. It's easy to say that the master air screw is a little bit more efficient on your power, but what that translates into flight time, you'll probably have to fly to find out. It's pretty definite that yes, that will increase your flight time, because again, this is one motor. You have to take that amp saving times 4, and maybe it'll translate into 30 seconds. Maybe it'll translate into a minute. Depends on how you fly. Just for interest, I think I'm going to try a different propeller, and we'll see what kind of a change we get in the amp pull using a different propeller, and I'll explain that here in a moment. But let's get set up for that. All right, this is a DJI Phantom propeller. I believe it might be designed for the Phantom 2, Phantom 3. This is what they call their stiff propeller. It has quite a bit more glass fiber in it than their other props. And let me see what the number is on this prop. I think it's actually a 9.5. I can't remember. Let me see if I can read this. 9450. Okay. This is called a 9450 DJI Phantom propeller. Pretty stiff. They're easy to find. Okay. Let's see what this does. Just out of curiosity, let's see what this does. Here we go. 200 grams of thrust. Here we go. Zero out the thrust. Make sure that's 0, keeping everything equal. There we go. Good. Here we go. Okay, right away that's taking more energy. It's a little over 1.8 amps. Or just a tad over, it's the same thing, about 203 grams of thrust. It's taking about 1.81 amps to do that. That's interesting. And the reason that's interesting is because there are people that are using different props. There are people that are using, I know I've seen some videos where people are using the chroma props, and they're experiencing like maybe more lift on those props, but you know what, that translates into more amp draw, which means less flight time. So if you want to fly it around maybe in a sporty manner, hey, that's fine, but you're going to have less flight time. This is all about what is the most efficient propeller for my solo. Or, you know what? This is showing us with this motor, this would also be a good propeller on a Phantom or anything else in this size range. So far so good. I've got one more propeller to try. Let's get set up for that. All right, what we have for the final test here is a Graupner. This is a Graupner very specific multi-rotor prop that they came out with a couple of years ago, and it has a lot of flexibility to it, but it has a very interesting design. It's a wide blade design like all of the other multi-rotor props. Graupner's a good company, good looking prop. Like I said, it is a lot softer than the other props. It has a lot more flexibility. Let's just try it and see what we do. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to 200 grams, 203 grams of thrust, see what the current pull is. Here we go. 0 out the system. Here we go. Okay, I'm right on the money at 203 grams of thrust, just like the other propellers, and 1.75 amps required. 1.75. And very much holding steady at 1.75. 203 grams of thrust, just like before. Okay, 1.75. All right, we did the tests and we found out that the master air screw propeller is maybe a little bit more efficient than the stock propeller from 3DR. Actually, what we found out was they're very close. Now, the master air screw does seem to have a bit more efficiency. It's not pulling as much current for the same amount of thrust as the other props that we tested, obviously including the 3DR prop. I want you to take a look at something here. The master air screw prop, let me see if I can get this turned around. Let me put something white underneath it. The master air screw prop, okay, there we go. If you can see that tip, let me get, there we go, in the right position. Okay, that tip has a little bit of upsweep to it. Let me see if I can get a better view of it here. It's kind of hard to get a good view of. Maybe it was better like that. Okay, put something white under there. It's a little bit hard to tell, but there's a little bit of an upsweep to it. There you go. Now that's a lot like the wing of a new aircraft. Like on your airliners, they have a pretty darn large anti-vortice tip. That's what that is on that propeller. It's an anti-vortice tip. What that does is that reduces drag. When the propeller is going around, air slides off of the end of the propeller and creates drag. It creates a little swirl of air. Airplane wings do the same thing. So the little anti-vortice tip is it's trying to reduce that swirl that comes off of the end of the propeller. It's trying to bring the air off in a cleaner manner, so that reduces drag. Now that could be the little secret to this propeller being a little bit more efficient than the other propellers, because they don't have that. I mean, you can take a look at even the Graupner tip has a nice profile to it, but it does not have the upsweep that the master air screw propeller has. And the other props, the DJI prop and this is the 3DR prop, they're just kind of flat. I mean, they're good looking props. Obviously these props are designed correctly, but the master air screw prop, there's no doubt in my mind after doing this many tests, it is a little bit more efficient. It will give you more flight time. Again, this is not for racing, this is for photography and video. It's going to give you a little bit more flight time. That's going to be dependent on how you fly. But there you have it. We did the tests. And even yesterday when I did the tests on the cheapy meter that I got from overseas, the Turnigy one, it showed the same result. It just wasn't the same number, but it did show, interestingly, the very same result. So I've done this test quite a few times. Now it's up to you guys to decide, and I do recommend these props. The only thing is they do have a separate nut that you do have to put down into the propeller. I used just a little dab of glue to keep the nut in there, so now I can spin them on like you do the normal 3DR prop. So there you have it. I hope you guys understood that information all right, and if you decide to go with these, just check them out for balance really quick before you install them. You should have good luck with them. I've had pretty good luck. I'm going to continue to fly with them. Not only that, it's becoming really hard to find the 3DR props. So here's a nice prop that maybe is a little bit better, and it's brand new. It's brand new, readily available. So there you go. Hopefully you guys have some good results with your flights, and stay tuned, subscribe. I'll get more information about some of the mods I'm doing on this and other projects. Thanks for watching.